Hey guys, it's Kat, and I'm back. Game of Thrones, some theories and ideas, mythology, history that might be at play in the Game of Thrones to give us some idea about things that will happen um, in the series. Shout out to all the people who are doing a great job, putting out much better videos than I am, actually. This is just me, blah, 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 and quality sucks, I know. So, Game of Thrones Academy, Gil and Itamar, they're the bomb. Maybe literally. They're the bomb. And I really took this idea of discussing mythology and history off of those guys. A bunch of it they've covered. And so in those, I just felt like I was kind of expanding on already information. And in this case, also occasionally filling in some gaps. So one of the gaps that I wanted to talk about was, again, apocalyptic theory and where it plays out in the Game of Thrones. What does it all mean? So one of the areas that I talked about was Greek mythology, and that every civilization had some idea or some concept of the end of the world, what was going to happen. Well, the Greeks also had this concept of the twilight of the gods. So just like Ragnarok, it's called the twilight of the gods, or the beginning of a new age, an ending of an old one. The Greeks had a similar concept. And this concept came with the idea that that actually a god or a goddess would in fact be the destruction of the gods. It would be twilight of the gods. So let's talk about this for a moment. If you know Greek mythology a little bit, Zeus is the son of Kronos, and Kronos received a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him. So he set about eating all his children, and before he could get to Zeus, his mother stuck Zeus in a cave and then wrapped a stone in a blanket and gave it to Kronos, who ate it. And there's actually a famous picture painted by Goya, I believe, of Kronos eating his children. And it gave rise to the common phrase of eating our young. The people or ideas or institutions often eat their young. So Zeus overthrows Kronos. He takes the throne and he marries Meta. And Meta is the goddess of information. Some also interpret that as knowledge, but definitely information and thinking. And then Zeus gets the same prophecy. The oracle tells him that a child of his and Meta will be born, and she'll be the destruction of the gods. Well, you know, Zeus, he's like, oh no, I just took over the throne, and that's not happening. So Meta's pregnant at that time. The child's not born yet, so he just decides that he's just going to swallow Meta whole. So he swallows Meta whole, and then he marries Hera, his half-sister, and proceeds to have a few other gods and goddesses, because those are not in the prophecy. But while he's sitting there, all of a sudden Zeus is having these severe headaches. It's killing him. And he just wants to crack open his skull and relieve the pressure. So he calls Hephaestus, the god of the forge, who makes fantastical weapons, sort of like Azor Ahai or Wayland the blacksmith. And Hephaestus brings him his hammer, and Zeus whacks himself in the head and cracks his skull open, and out pops Athena, the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. And Athena is fully armed and armored. So that's an analogy for knowledge is an arm is a defense and an offense all in itself. And so Athena is the goddess of wisdom and knowledge. So what is the prophecy saying about what's going to be the destruction of the Greek gods? Well, knowledge. So the Greeks are basically saying that mankind, once he learns enough, has enough information, that he will in fact stop believing in the gods, and they will just slowly disappear. So knowledge and wisdom destroys the gods. However, there's also another apocalyptic concept here in the Greek mythology, and that is that when Zeus overthrew Kronos, he had a great battle with the Titans, his other brothers and sisters, and some of them were monsters and some were not. The monstrous ones he threw in the deepest, darkest parts of Tartarus, which I've already discussed, and locked them there forever. And if you remember that discussion, the Titans actually represent, those Titans in Tartarus actually represent all the natural catastrophes that could possibly happen. So just like Jormungandr, I'll let you pronounce that, the great serpent that encircles the earth, and Fenrir, the wolf who shoots fire out of his eyes and mouth that's like volcanoes. Also, do the Titans in Greek mythology have these aspects, and they're said to cause earthquakes and great floods and things of that nature. And so having locked them into Tartarus, their powers or ability to do these really horribly destructive things that could possibly, potentially destroy the earth are at least reduced. They don't go away forever, but they're reduced. However, the Greek story is that someday, somehow, somebody, some human person, most likely, will gain the ability to release these Titans from their captivity and cause all these terrible catastrophes to occur and possibly destroy mankind. And so there it is. Wisdom and knowledge will be the destruction of the gods and possibly bring about the apocalypse. In the story of the apocalypse, very similar to Christian theories of Noah and the ark and the two of every species, that at the end Zeus allows two old people to survive, the only two people that showed any wisdom or restraint during this entire time, after the Titans are defeated, and these two repopulate the earth. And since they're really old and can't actually have children, Zeus tells them to basically throw the mother's bones over their shoulders, and that's the stones, because the mother is Gaia and her bones are stones. And these will spring up men, and these will be the stone men. I'm not sure if that says anything any better about mankind at that point. Okay, so now you get it. So what has that got to do with the Games of Thrones? Well, if you saw Gil and Itamar over at the Game of Thrones Academy, he was talking about the Maesters. They have a particular video. It's really great, and they talk about the role of the Maesters and where they will probably go at the end of Game of Thrones, or what role they'll play. And I totally agree with them, because the Maesters are knowledge, right? The Maesters are just like the monks. They went to the Citadel and learned, and after the Dark Ages, the Maesters maintain the knowledge and helps rebuild society, basically. And certainly without the monks in the, pardon me, the monks in the monasteries sitting there copying Aristotle and Cicero and various other Greek and Roman authors, the idea of a republic or democracy would not exist, and the United States would not have existed. So there's how this rolls. So what do I think is going to happen in Game of Thrones? Same thing that Gil and Itamar talked about, which is a new sort of bureaucracy will occur, where the government is centered more on people of knowledge figuring out how to govern properly, while people like lords or whomever, kings and queens, will become more and more figureheads, because that's what happened in the real world. So thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed that little discussion of Greek apocalypse. I'll see you next time.